In 2006, Argentina witnessed one of the greatest heists in its history, where a group of thieves targeted the Rio de Acaso Bank, one of the largest banks in the country. It was not just an ordinary theft. It was a meticulously planned criminal operation executed by brilliant minds in the world of crime. The thieves stormed the bank armed and took hostages, prompting the police to completely surround the area. Negotiations continued for many hours until the thieves announced they were ready to surrender, but they made a strange request that puzzled everyone: to bring them pizza. Indeed, the pizza arrived, but suddenly all means of communication between the police and the thieves were cut off. The police decided to storm the bank, but the surprise was shocking. There were no thieves inside the bank, only the hostages. As for the criminals, they had completely disappeared. The confusion and mystery increased when the special forces went to the vault to find it empty, without any trace of theft or any exit for the criminals to escape. The police immediately turned their attention to the hostages. Suspicions arose that the thieves might be disguised among them. Searches and interrogations began. It was another shock. They did not find any thief among those present. So, where did the thieves disappear to? And how did they manage to escape with all those spoils without anyone noticing? This true story began when the leader, Fernando Araujo, visited his psychiatrist and revealed his desire to rob a bank. The doctor was surprised by his unexpected confession and assumed that Fernando was under the influence of drugs because he had become addicted to them. In astonishment, the doctor asked him, "Where did you get this idea, Fernando?"
"Do you need that?" Fernando replied. "As you know, I am an artist, and I feel capable of turning any robbery into a masterpiece." The psychiatrist asked again, "How do you plan to carry out this operation?"
Fernando replied confidently, "I have no idea yet, but I've been thinking about it a lot these days.
A psychiatrist considered Fernando's talk as mere passing words and did not give it any attention. But he did not know that Fernando was determined to carry out his plan, which would turn into the biggest and smartest heist in the history of Argentina. Fernando used to wander daily through the streets of the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires, searching for the perfect target for his operation. After deep thought, he chose Banco Río, the largest bank in the country. Located in an upscale area, this means that the majority of the bank's clients are wealthy, indicating that their deposits are filled with large sums of money and valuable items. Fernando thought of several plans to rob this bank, and after careful and intensive study, he settled on two main options. The first method is to storm the bank armed during working hours and collect the money quickly before the police arrive. But this plan was dangerous and uncertain, as they would not have enough time to gather the largest amount of loot and escape before the police arrived. The second method was to break into the bank through a tunnel leading directly to the vault, allowing them to steal the money without drawing attention. But this plan faced another danger, which is the sensors and the advanced alarm system that might expose them before completing the operation. Although both methods carry the same level of risk, he chose the second plan as he saw it as more clever, and it gave him a perfect opportunity to gather as much loot as possible. Fernando realized that the best way to reach the bank vault without attracting attention was to dig a secret tunnel leading directly into it after it was closed. However, executing this idea was not easy, as he had to study every detail carefully. At first, he thought about renting a ground-floor apartment or studio near the bank to serve as a starting point for digging the tunnel underground towards the bank vault. But during his daily rounds in the city, he discovered something that could make the task much easier. Fernando noticed that there were manhole covers distributed along the street where the bank is located, at a rate of one cover every 10 meters. Then he realized that there was indeed a network of sewer tunnels extending under the bank, which meant he could use this system to reach the vault without having to dig from scratch. Fernando continued to follow the sewer openings along the street until he reached the main sewer outlet, a massive opening located only 150 meters from the bank. Without hesitation, he entered the tunnel and began exploring it. At first, he found a square-shaped passage, but he continued advancing for about 100 meters until he reached a large main circular tunnel with a diameter of about 6 meters. This tunnel extending under the city passed directly in front of the bank. At that moment, Fernando realized he could not carry out the operation alone, as the task was complex and required a team of people with different skills. The first person Fernando thought of was Sebastian Garcia Poloja, one of his friends known by the nickname the Engineer, due to his extensive experience in electronics and mechanics. When Fernando went to meet him and told him about his plan, Sebastian was astonished by what he was saying because he always knew Fernando as an artist and a lover of drugs only, a peaceful person with a clean criminal record and no prior offenses or experience in the world of crime. He never imagined that this artist was planning one of the smartest heists in the history of Argentina. Fernando began explaining the details of the robbery to Sebastian and told him what he did and what he plans to do regarding Banco Río and the tunnel he discovered. He explained how he planned everything precisely. Sebastian got excited and showed his full readiness to get involved with Fernando in carrying out this operation. Their first step was to visit the bank site. Then they headed towards the tunnel to plan and determine where they could start digging. Fernando and Sebastian brought measuring tapes and lowered them into the sewer openings. These tapes helped them accurately determine the location inside the tunnel and how far they were from the surface. After that, they went to the bank and started taking detailed pictures of the bank, pretending to be regular customers. Their goal was reaching the vault located in the basement underground. All of this is so they can estimate the potential surface area of the bank and the number of safety deposit boxes, which may reach 100 boxes. They needed accurate information about the bank that might be stored in the municipality, as all their calculations were merely personal estimates. Since the tools Sebastian used were expensive, Fernando felt he needed people with experience in thefts to help them carry out the operation safely. Therefore, he began searching for a new partner to join their crew. They contacted a man they called Doctor. His true identity was not revealed because he played the role of coordinator in secret. The doctor assured Fernando that he would provide the right team to accomplish this complex operation. The first person to join the team was Beto de la Torrel. He was a gangster and a financier at the same time. He had a dirty criminal record. Despite that, he had no experience in theft operations, but he was an expert in weapons, which made him a suitable addition to join the group. Fernando and the doctor met with Beto, told him all the details of the plan, and presented the idea to him. After hearing the plan, Beto was convinced and became very excited.
Fernando asked him, "Can you fund this operation because we will need a lot of things?" Beto replied, "Currently, I don't have the money, but I have a truck that I will sell to fund the operation."
Beto became the third main member of the gang, while the doctor was not part of the group. He was just a coordinator who provided assistance to the gang and then disappeared. As events unfolded, Fernando realized he needed a fourth member. He has the strength to perform tasks that require physical effort. While the engineer was busy preparing the necessary tools, the older financier was unable to assist them directly. At that point, Fernando suggested adding a fourth member to the team named Luis Silan. Known for his violence, notorious criminal record, and extensive experience in thefts. He had previously carried out many operations and spent 15 years in prison because of them. Despite his nervous temperament and constant readiness to use violence, he possesses sharp intelligence and exceptional skill in acting and deception, making him an essential member of the gang. At this moment, the gang was complete and consisted of 4 people: Fernando the leader, Sebastian the engineer, Beto the financier, and Luis the violent one. Together, they began studying the final details of the operation. Then, they went down into the tunnel to verify the calculations prepared by Fernando and Sebastian as mentioned earlier. The calculations needed extreme precision, and for this reason they asked their friend Luis to help them obtain the bank building plans from the municipality. Luis promised to bring them these plans, and when they asked him how he would do it, he answered with a smile, "Don't worry, I will know how to handle this matter." And after a few days, Luis brought the plans, but they didn't know how he got them. Did he bribe a municipal employee? Or did he break into the municipal building himself and steal them? No one knows. The important thing is that they got it quickly according to their plan. The tunnel should be dug at an inclined angle as shown in this picture. They began by determining the starting point for digging the tunnel, taking into account the angles, length, and all other details to make the calculations more precise. Then, they developed a comprehensive plan that included all the necessary calculations for the upcoming digging process. Then they began bringing in the necessary tools for the operation, including a diesel generator and excavators to start digging the tunnel. During the digging process, there was always someone watching the street to ensure that the sound of digging was not heard from above. The operation would have taken them several months at least, so they moved on to solve another problem, which was the sensors and alarms that would activate as soon as someone set foot inside the vault. Fernando used his technical skills. He began designing a schematic for special suits that could reduce body temperature, making the wearers invisible to thermal sensors. These suits were made from sleeping bags used by campers and hikers. To ensure their effectiveness, Fernando first bought a thermal camera. Then he conducted several tests to take pictures of it to check if his body heat could be detected. Again, doubt crept in, and the idea seemed a bit frightening to them, as there would be 4 people in the basement carrying a lot of equipment, and they would have to stay there for a long time to get all the loot. These estimates confirmed to them that the idea was not safe and that they were exposed to many risks. This is why Fernando felt frustrated after spending long hours thinking of a way to enter the basement without being detected. A few days later, a crazy idea came to his mind. While Fernando and his crew were planning to break in through the tunnel, they had dismissed the idea of carrying out an armed robbery on the bank, considering it impossible, as the police would surround the place within a few minutes. Fernando's new idea was, instead of using the tunnel to enter, they decided to use it to escape. This way, the sensors and alarms become useless. The police will surround the bank from the outside only, without realizing that the thieves are escaping through the underground tunnel. First, Fernando started searching the internet to see if anyone had ever carried out a robbery in this way before. After a long search, he didn't find any case similar to his idea. which reinforced his belief that the Argentine police would never expect this method. Fernando told his crew about the new plan, and their reactions were a mix of astonishment and enthusiasm. Now, they have to add weapons to the list of required equipment. Beto assured them that he would take care of it. As a gangster with extensive experience in these matters, he knows exactly what they need, and the weapons they would use were special and carefully designed to ensure the success of their plan. The entire operation took a whole year. During this year, the tunnel was dug and a small dam was built inside it. The challenges. This tunnel is to raise the water level to a certain point so they can use small inflatable boats to transport the loot. After that, Fernando and his crew began discussing the escape plan. At first, the idea was to escape through the sewer outlet, but they realized that this route might not be safe. Once the police realize what's happening, you will immediately head to the river mouth and close it, which might cut off their escape route. The group began studying the available options. They explored the alternative route that extends in the opposite direction of the outlet, but after evaluation, they realized that the first route was better. It contained many sewer openings, spaced 10 meters apart along the tunnel they chose. One of these openings was only 200 meters from the bank, and coincidentally, a car was parked above it. To execute their plan, a truck was allocated for this purpose, so they decided to make an opening in the truck's floor so it could be placed directly over the manhole. Beto, the financier, brought a small truck and they placed it in the garage where the crew gathered to make the necessary modifications. While they were working, Beto's wife appeared, wandering beside them. The gang members were surprised and asked him why his wife was in the garage. Beto immediately replied, saying, "Don't worry, everything is fine. I trust her completely, and there's no need for concern." Remember this woman, as she will have a significant role in the story later. After finishing the modifications on the truck, they needed a driver to wait for them upon their arrival. This driver was the second person whose identity had not yet been revealed and was known by the nickname The Boy. He was not just a driver, but was almost connected to all the threads of this heist. After completing all the modifications, the only thing left for them was the method to quickly open the safety deposit boxes, as there are hundreds of safe deposit boxes in the vault that they cannot open manually because it would take them many hours. For this reason, Sebastian the engineer designed a hydraulic tool called the cannon, a tool specifically designed to break the locks of the boxes in just 7 seconds each. Finally, after all these preparations and efforts, everything was ready. As you can see, this is the sewer tunnel through which they will sneak in with boats. And this is the dug tunnel that leads to the bank. Here are the safety deposit boxes inside the bank, and about 200 meters away is the sewer opening, from which they will escape. The truck is parked above this opening. The awaited day has arrived, which coincides with the 13th of January 2006. The time for execution has come. Sebastian, the engineer, was the first to enter the tunnel, heading towards the tunnel hole they had previously dug. When he got there, he placed the inflatable boats with the necessary equipment on them. Then, Sebastian climbed up to the bank wall and waited for the signal from his friends. As for the rest of the crew, Fernando the leader, Beto the financier, and Luis the violent one, once they ensured everything was ready, stormed the bank heavily armed and took control immediately. They held the employees and customers hostage and ordered them to lie face down. The bank's security guard remained inside his room, locked it, and informed the police. The police took only a few minutes to arrive at the bank. When the police arrived, Fernando felt that the bank was completely surrounded. At that moment, he realized it was time to execute the trick they had previously planned, which they called the Coco. The idea was to take one of the hostages and lead them out of the bank, pretending to attempt an escape, then bring them back inside. With this trick, they showed the police that they were planning to escape before they arrived, and they placed a truck in front of the bank to make it look like they would use it to escape. But because the police arrived quickly, their plan failed, and the Coco plan succeeded. When the police chief arrived, they informed him that there were robbers in the bank who tried to escape through the front door and immediately returned after realizing the bank was surrounded by the police. At that point, the police chief thought the robbers couldn't find an alternative exit and that they had been contained and trapped inside the bank. But one thing remained that hindered the gang's plan: the security guard who locked himself in his room. They had to get him out because he was in direct contact with the police, and if he saw them leaving the bank, he would certainly inform the police immediately. Therefore, they decided to negotiate with him, but he refused to comply with their orders. At that moment, the violent Luis intervened and told him, "If you don't come out of your room immediately, something worse will happen to you." Despite that, the security guard remained stubborn and refused to come out, which led Luis to take one of the employees, put a gun to her head, and threaten the guard with killing her. Initially, the guard remained determined not to come out. But when the employee started crying and begging him to do what they asked, he couldn't risk her life, so he decided to come out. He opened the door, placed his gun on the table, and surrendered to the violent Luis. Luis searched him thoroughly and took his phone. Then he escorted him to the bank's door and let him out. Afterwards, the guard went to the police and special forces surrounding the bank. The police chief asked him about what was happening inside the bank. The guard replied, "There are 3 armed robbers with about 30 hostages and they have taken their phones." The police chief took a quick glance through the bank windows and saw one of the robbers waving at them with a phone, as if asking them to call him from the guard's phone. At the same time, Fernando, the operation leader, gave his orders to Sebastian, who was waiting for them inside the tunnel, to start raiding the vault. Sebastian began digging and suddenly heard the sound of something moving from the other side. It was Fernando, who was moving the file cabinet located in the same place where Sebastian was digging, Uacunia, Belmodesida Asiyan Desiad. At that moment, Fernando felt relieved when he saw Sebastian confirm that he was digging in the right place, because until that moment he was afraid of digging in the wrong spot. Sebastian, the engineer, entered the vault carrying his hydraulic tool and began opening the safe deposit boxes. The plan was to open as many safety deposit boxes as possible within just 2 hours. They had already estimated that they could open about 400 boxes in 2 hours. Meanwhile, Fernando and Sebastian were looting the contents of the boxes filled with money and jewelry. Luis and the financier were controlling the hostages and trying to delay the police until the 2-hour deadline was over. The violent Luis was responsible for communicating with the police, as he was the one who got the phone, as we mentioned earlier. Thanks to his talent in acting and deception, he managed to delay the police by creating different characters to distract them. Even the police chief was surprised by the way Luis spoke to him, because he possesses the art of word manipulation. The police chief asked Luis on the phone about their conditions and demands. Luis replied saying, "Listen, dear police chief, we intended to rob the bank and leave immediately, but you were much faster than we expected, and we are not prepared to harm anyone. But now, we do not know what we will do." At that moment, the police chief was observing Luis through binoculars from one of the bank's windows. He saw him sitting cross-legged and relaxed, as if he were taking a business call in his private office. At that moment, the police chief realized he was talking to someone with previous criminal experience. The conversation continued, and this time Luis changed his approach and said to the police chief, "Let me tell you something, my friend.
It hasn't been long since I got out of prison. I spent 15 years behind bars, and this is not my first robbery. I know all the police tricks. Please don't mess with me. You might harm the hostages.
The police chief replied, saying,
Don't worry, we won't do anything. Just release one of them to show us your goodwill.
Louis replied, saying,
We gave you the guard. Don't be greedy. We are the only ones responsible for deciding when to release the hostages. Goodbye.
Then he hung up the phone. In this way, Luis proved to the police chief that he was the one leading the negotiations and forced him to think twice before acting. And this is what the thieves needed at that moment. The communication continued again between Luis and the police chief, and Luis occasionally made up some imaginary stories to distract the police officers. He asked them to contact his lawyer to negotiate the terms of surrender, and gave them the phone number of one of the hostages. When the police called this number, Luis changed his voice and pretended to be the lawyer, telling them he was on his way to negotiate. Luis's way of negotiating with the police was exceptional. He managed to delay them for a long time while his friends desperately needed more time. After 2 hours, Sebastian the engineer and Fernando the leader discovered that they had not managed to open the targeted number of safety deposit boxes. They had only managed to open 147 boxes because the hydraulic machine stopped working due to some heating issues and did not perform as expected. However, the loot they obtained was massive, so they decided not to risk further and stick to the plan. Fernando, the leader, decided to call Luis the Violent, and he told him that it was time to execute the escape plan. At that moment, Luis resorted to a clever trick and called the police chief and said to him,
Listen carefully. We are done and ready to surrender. But I know you will keep us in custody for a long time, without food. So before we surrender, we want you to bring a lot of pizza for us and the hostages.
The police chief replied, saying,
All right, I will bring you all the pizza right away.
Luis replied again and insisted that the pizza must be authentic Italian from a special restaurant located far from the bank to delay them as long as possible. The police chief agreed to his request and assured him that they would bring the pizza from the restaurant he wanted. After that, Luis cut off all types of communication with the police and, along with Beto, ordered all the hostages to lie face down without any movement, threatening to shoot anyone who tried to move. At the same time, Fernando and Sebastian gathered all the loot they had stolen, then put it in bags and threw it through the tunnel. After that, they lay down and were joined by Luis and Beto inside the vault. Before leaving, they placed their weapons on a piece of cloth, and we will find out the reason for this later at the end of the story. When they exited the pit, they placed something resembling a bomb inside, then returned the file cabinet to its place to hide the entrance. After that, they went directly through the tunnel to their inflatable boats, where they placed the loot on one and boarded the other, and set off through the sewer tunnel until they reached the pit they planned to escape from. They carried the bags of loot and climbed the ladder directly to the truck without being noticed. They headed towards the house they had prepared in advance, and upon arrival they drove the truck into the garage and immediately went to the television to follow the news and check if the police were pursuing them or not. The funny thing is that even at that moment, the police had not yet stormed the bank. The thieves were sitting in front of the television, relaxed, as if they were watching a movie, enjoying observing the police's reaction and waiting to see what would happen next. In the meantime, the pizza ordered by the thieves arrived. The police chief tried to contact Luis, but all his attempts failed. At that moment, the police realized it was time to storm the bank. The police chief ordered the special forces to raid and prepare for any armed confrontation that might occur. When the police stormed the bank, they found no one but the hostages. They could not comprehend what happened or how the thieves managed to escape. They were confused, especially since Fernando and his crew expertly concealed the hole. They assumed the thieves might be hiding among the hostages. Therefore, they detained them all to verify their identities. After a period of searching, they discovered the hole behind the file cabinet. But they encountered an unexpected problem. They found something that looked like a bomb, prompting them to call the explosives team to examine it. After careful examination, it turned out to be just another trick by the thieves, a fake bomb. Meanwhile, the gang crew was at their safe house watching the news on TV and celebrating their big achievement. Then they distributed the loot among themselves randomly, avoiding counting the money precisely. The stolen items were a mix of cash, gold, and jewelry valued at approximately $19 million, making this operation the largest bank robbery in the history of Argentina. After dividing the spoils, the plan was for each one to go their separate ways without contacting or meeting again. Each took their share, got into their car, and set off in their own direction. They were happy, but one of them would quickly lose their happiness, and the others would be pursued one by one. Beto was the financier. As you know, his wife was aware of the robbery. One day, when he returned home, he noticed that one of the loot bags was not in its usual place, and when he opened it, he discovered that a large bundle of money had disappeared. He went directly to his wife and asked her anxiously,
"Did you take some money from the bags?"
She answered him with complete calm.
Yes, I took about 5 or 6 bundles, around $300,000.
At that moment, Beto felt extremely angry and said to his wife, "We are trying to stay out of sight. How dare you take such a large amount of money without telling me? We will be exposed because of you. I ask you to return the money you took immediately."
Beto's wife refused to return the money, and the tension between them escalated until the argument turned into a heated confrontation. In the end, Beto decided to move the loot bags and hide them in a place unknown to his wife, fearing she might take more. But this action made her extremely angry. As soon as he left the house, she went to the nearest police station and filed a report against him, driven by jealousy and suspicion. She thought he might betray her and take the money to his mistress. The strange thing is, imagine that the reason for Beto's arrest was not theft, but jealousy. Although Beto was loyal to his family and never thought of leaving them, finally Beto was arrested, but during the interrogation he refused to reveal the identities of his partners. However, with the help of his wife, in addition to other evidence collected such as phone tracking, the police were able to identify the 4 gang members. Although each one tried to escape in a different direction, they all fell one by one into the hands of justice, leading to their arrest and trial. The surprising thing is the authorities' inability to find most of the loot, as the thieves deliberately hid it in complex and carefully planned locations, making it almost impossible to find. During their trial sessions, the gang members denied all charges against them, but the court sentenced them to prison terms ranging from 9 to 15 years. Due to their good behavior during their time in prison, they were granted parole after serving about 2 years behind bars. Fernando and Sebastian were placed under house arrest in their home, while Beto and Luis served longer prison sentences due to their prior criminal records. Nevertheless, they did not fully complete the original sentence, as Luis served 6 years and Pato 8 years, which is much less than initially planned. The sentences were light because of the weapons they used. They were fake. Do you remember when I told you that their weapons were special and that they placed them there before escaping because they were fake and not real? Imagine that the gang carried out an extremely large operation where they took control of police officers, special forces and hostages using fake weapons. It seems unbelievable, but the clear explanation is that this tactic was carefully planned. Even if they were caught, the penalty they would face for using fake weapons would be significantly different from the penalty for actual armed robbery. And thanks to this trick, they were able to significantly reduce their sentence, resulting in short sentences that led to their early release. There is also a lot of mystery surrounding the fate of the missing loot, which opens the door to several assumptions. Perhaps a secret agreement was reached with the authorities to recover part of the money in exchange for their early release, or bribes may have been paid to reduce the penalties. But so far, these assumptions remain unconfirmed. On the other hand, the bank's clients were compensated through insurance, which helped maintain the bank's stability and continuity without being seriously affected by the theft. And you, dear viewer, share your opinion with us in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to our channel to receive all the latest updates.